Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuhu. The online participants, we now using another device. So do you mind confirming that you can hear us well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussion on the 20 letter. Yes. Oh, just give me a second, please. Oh, okay. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussions on the 20 letter. This 20 letter that you would remember is the tafsir of this dua. La ilaha illallahu wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu, yahdi wa yumitu wa huwa hayyun la yamutu biyadihil hayru wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir wa ilayhil masir. We are doing the tafsir, the interpretation, understanding of this dua, and we are trying to understand the La ilaha illallah, the first part. This 20 letter is organized in a way that within the first station, each phrase is interpreted and studied. And because the La ilaha illallah is the most fundamental thing in Quranic understanding, and it is the highest level of iman, as an authentic hadith from alayhi salatu wassalam narrated. So we spend a lot of time trying to understand the La ilaha illallah. And so I have some maybe initial comments, but before that, let's try to recall what we studied last a few weeks, and then we can continue with the new text, inshallah. So who wants to, as a volunteer, of course, who wants to remind us what we discussed last 3 weeks? This is the fourth, I guess, the week that we are studying this part. So, Sarah, since you have the microphone, I'm just, suggesting.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm trying to remember what we discussed last time, at least. I remember, so the question was, why la ilaha first? So I think we focused on the idea why la ilaha, and then so we said that first we should reach this, that there is la ilaha, and then comes, and the conclusion should be illallah, only one God. And what does it mean? I remember we discussed what does it mean to say la ilaha. It's basically it's kind of rejecting all these small ilahs that sometimes we don't think that we are like we don't consider them as ilah, but we give them maybe some kind of divinity or so when we say that something has its own, is doing this thing by itself, it has its own will, or so we are kind of considering it as an ilah. Like we talked a lot about the water, the drop of water falling down, whether it's like when we say the water is falling, what does it mean? The water, or it's raining, what does it mean to say that? It's very important to be aware that this thing is like, it's all like it's something happening. It's the will of God. It's not something inherent to the water that that it can move, but it's something being given to the water or to anything else. So once we and we compared that, I remember Peter's example about like people in his town or community where they like say that there is some other spiritual superpower that is sending the rain. So while that is also a big claim, but claiming that things have their own will or so and saying it's natural law, it's similar to claiming that there is some other supernatural power. So saying so we cannot say that this supernatural power, oh, you call it supernatural power and I call it Allah. Like it's not like that. So Allah for us is not just like this supernatural power sitting somewhere there and controlling thing whenever it wants, or controlling certain things, and some things it leaves them to their own. So that's why, yeah, that's what I remember basically. So like by acknowledging and admitting that nothing is doing things by its own, nothing has its own will, and everything at every single moment is happening by the will of God, is actually this part by saying La ilaha, and then we reach the conclusion that there is something else which is illallah. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, mashallah. This is like a beyond what I would expect from anyone, including myself, even Zeren. Can you imagine? And so we have a new show in town, it seems. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So anyone else who wants to add what we discussed so far about the La ilaha? And again, I'm on purpose, I'm saying La ilaha without saying illallah, because this is what we've been studying, right? La ilaha part. And it comes first in Quran as well. So the illallah is the conclusion of when you exhaust all these la parts. Anyone else? And do you want to add something?
Over the past 2 weeks, we talked about two major candidates. This is what I remember. One was natural law, and the second one was it happens by itself. So I guess you have a third thing for this week, or?
Inshallah, yeah. And we also had a homework, as far as I remember. We were supposed to think about all the false idols in our lives and how unconsciously, sometimes consciously, may Allah forgive us, that we tend to attribute, as you said, the divinity or the power of creation, the creative power to things. And so just one example we keep giving just to remind is, for instance, the water. Like you are thirsty, you drink the water, and you are almost thankful to the water itself, like because you think that this feeling, the sense of quenching is coming from the water, right? And then we may make up some stories. We say, oh yeah, the water, takes care of my thirst, but there's Allah who creates the water. But still, like within the relationship between me and the water, it is water that sustains me. This is how I live my life. So we were supposed to think about, the certain false idols that occupies our minds and deny them. Say La ilaha. So who wants to share his homework? Yeah. No. Oh, do you mind passing the microphone on his flat? Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. He wants to say something. Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to. I think maybe one of our kind of greatest idols at least in the context of this society where there's this like sort of almost obsession with work and climbing the career ladder and making more money and so on. I think perhaps like maybe our bosses, or in the case if you have your own company, your customers are in a sense your idols or mini gods, in the sense that you're at their service and serving their whims and their wants and their needs, and sort of sometimes even working hard to your own detriment to attend to whatever they want and whatever they think is appropriate or not appropriate, and so on. But that also goes into like money itself, or the pursuit of wealth, which itself tends to be another sort of false idol that leads us to issues where you're like different insecurities, where you start like being obsessively afraid of poverty and afraid of ever falling behind, or on the opposite, being like obsessed with accumulating more and more wealth to the detriment of sometimes even your own basic needs and the needs of your own family. Yeah, but there's a lot of, as you mentioned, even just the water can be a false idol, attributing power to things that only exist and only have such power as Allah allows them to have. So yeah, there are many things, but I just kind of mentioned probably more what would come up to many.
So you actually mentioned like at least hundreds of idols there.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's just,
yes,
it's but you can sort of like coalesce them into a few that are like more common than the others. Yeah.
So going with your examples, so sometimes we have this tendency that when we talk about like let's say the work life, the money, boss, customers, we have this tendency to think that only when it is on the extreme, it's a problem. But if you are taking it as, like if you have a life balance, this is what they call nowadays, right? If you have a balance in your life, there is nothing wrong with that. So as a believer, for instance, you would, I mean, not you necessarily, but I would be okay, for instance, thinking that as long as you have a life balance, assuming that the money will bring happiness to you, it's normal because money brings happiness to you, I would say, right? So the problem there, it's more fundamental than, just the excessive, the desire to collect money. Even the smallest amount of money, I do attribute creatorship, right? I say, what are you talking about, Yusuf? Like without money, you cannot buy bread. This is obvious, I would say. And without bread, you cannot get, food. You have to be hungry. So there are such rules in life, I would say. And it is money that brings health to you. Or you have to work, you have to satisfy your boss or your customer, with your example. But just do it in a balanced way. Don't go too far. So these are, I think these are really great examples because they touch upon this fundamental issue that regardless of the amount, regardless of the excessiveness or not, we do attribute idolship to such, the parts of our society. And there is no escape from that. Like I can, for instance, convince Yusuf that it's not medicine that gives you health. He can be convinced. And he said, okay, I will live without medicine. I mean, this is not I'm suggesting, but because he can think that he can live without medicine, it is at least relatively easier for him to accept that yes, medicine doesn't give me health. It is God directly giving me health. Medicine is just like when you take the medicine, it's like praying, right? When you pray, for instance, you raise your hands. Why is it your hands giving you something? No, it's just the means for prayer, right? The same thing. You take the medicine, it's just a prayer. Oh God, oh Ya Shafi, give me shifa. This is your prayer, right? So he can accept this. But if I tell him that it is not your boss, your dean, that gives you success, that controls controls your promotions. If I tell him, he would say, Birkan, now you are going too far. I mean, come on, he would say, right? Without having a good relationship with my dean, or at least strategize some, the stuff, I cannot get promotion. He would say, right? So with such that's the reason I think your examples are great, because these are so, how to say, hard to abandon. Like these idols that you listed, these are our biggest idols usually. Please.
Yeah, I also think going about the example of promotion that you just cited.
Oh, you can keep it a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
So I think most of us here are students, and when I think about this, when we are preparing for exam in the university, we pray to Allah to make us pass. But people will tell you that praying alone doesn't guarantee you're going to pass. You have to read. Now, then when I read, I'm almost certain that I will pass. So then somebody will be like, well, I don't have to pray. If I read, I will pass. So you attribute that success, passing your exam, to the book you read, right? Even though somebody tell you that, I think you should pray and read. You're like, yeah, it's very, I think in that kind of circumstances, it's very hard not to attribute the success of your exam, of your performance, to the book you read, and not just by praying to Allah, just by this issue of promotion that you cited, because it's kind of very it's hard. If you are not somebody that is very conscious of this, it's very easy to say, well, I pray to God, but then I still read. If I didn't read, I won't pass.
So that's a great point. It's really a fantastic point. So the author of this text that we are studying, Imam Nusri, he says, I'm just paraphrasing with my words. He says, when you look at the universe, you will see nothing but prayer. Everything happens in the universe. Every action is a kind of prayer, he would say. So for instance, when I say praying, it's not only just, raising your hands or thinking about God. So when you study, it is actually a prayer. It's it's not a qawli dua, but fi'li dua, it's a prayer with action, prayer with articulating, different type of prayers. Sometimes I pray by just articulating, oh God, give me, wealth. Sometimes I work hard, and this is my prayer now. Working hard is the prayer. But you can take working hard as not prayer and say that, I work hard and I get the wealth. It is the consequences of working hard, you would say. And this is kind of, I would say right now, just to be kind, it is kind of shirk, because you get rid of Creator Allah out of the equation. You say, I work hard and I get wealth, or I work hard and I get good grades from exam. So there's God or no, it doesn't matter, right? Even without God, if you just work hard, you get good grades. If you think that way, it is shirk, it is nothing but shirk. But what happens, the difference is, you still work hard, but you take it as a prayer.
So then I can argue that when this is, I understand what you're saying, but I can argue that shirk, when you call something shirk, it must be an act of worship, an act of ibadah, right? If I'm not worshiping my reading, then in that instance, I should be committing shirk, right? Because I read and I'm saying because I passed this exam now is as a result of me reading, right? Whereas if you are saying I committed a shirk, then it must mean that I'm worshiping, I'm worshiping the reading.
Yes.
Shall we say no? I'm not worshiping.
Which reminded me hadith again. The people would say, if Sahaba came from, let's say, a Christianity or Jewish tradition, and when they hear that in this tradition, you hear the accusation that in this tradition people would worship their leaders, they go to Prophet and they say, "Oh, Prophet, we were not worshiping them," and he would say, "But did you do everything they did? And were you trying to please them and so on?" And they would say, "Yes." And the response from the Prophet ﷺ was that then you were worshiping them. The same way, like if you take your reading, for instance, without reading, I cannot pass my exam. Without reading, I have to please my reading, right? And without reading, there is no way that I can pass my exam. If this is your mindset, you are actually worshiping your reading. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, just to take this as an intro. So in this case, what we are saying is, cause of my success is studying. So what is the source of success? It is the cause, which is reading. I think this would be today's topic, actually, the causes. There are apparent causes, which we think is the source of, let it be success, or you see water, which is the source of my quenching. I see rain, I say, oh, rain or water is the source of life. This is why we look for water in Mars. If we find water in there, we would say, oh, there must be life, or there must have been life. So overall, today's discussion topic is going to be causes as the God that we think is, or we generally believe in. Worshipping, yes, as Birkan said, worshipping does not necessarily mean that you go in front of it and make sajda or prostration and whatnot. But if I am revering education, like if I am saying that, if you want to be happy and prosperous, you have to read. What did I say? I just give my salutations to reading in this case, because this is the source of success, right? So this is worship. But I guess today's topic is going to be exactly that. Causes.
Maybe we can continue from this example, exactly. So good example, let's use this, inshallah. And so I think we should keep in mind that when we talk about the idols, like we say la ilaha, right? There is no ilah other than Allah. And this la ilaha is applied to the idols. So when we say idol, if we think only, these statues, yes, made of clay or stone and so on and so forth, it means we're just reading Quran and the stories of the prophets as just stories. Like that was the idol in their time manifested in this way. In our day and age, we have other idols. We have even maybe more idols than before. They don't need to be statues out of clay or stone. So it's about the concept, the definition. So for instance, how they would define the idol in the time of, let's say, a Prophet ﷺ, they would sacrifice things for them, right? So for instance, Zechariah sacrifices his youth to get a degree, right? They would try to please them. Zechariah, for instance, would try to please this education system so that he would get his degree. I mean, just as an example, I'm sorry. It's just so fresh that I couldn't help but, And then, they would spend time, for instance, in front of them and so on and so forth. And Zechariah would spend a lot of time to get his degree. So everything that this mushrikun had, been doing at that time, we are doing for our idols. Idols. Okay. So please don't try to find a clay or stone statue to say La ilaha. You won't find them. But you will find many other idols in your life. Okay, let's continue with La ilaha. Keep saying La ilaha. And last a few weeks we said that we were going through the rain example. Who brings down the rain? And we talk about some, candidate ilahs, the gods. And at the end of the discussion, we said, La ilaha. No, it cannot be. So today we will approach from another angle. And we will, as you said, oh, that was a comment? From you, Director? Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. I just kept thinking about as we talked and heard some other people's discussion, but when we think of, like, for example, helping other people, and you go in certain career, you're like, and then you look at other people in other leadership role, and they're like, we've done this. There's a lot of statistics of like, oh, we did this. This is how we help diversity and equity and health. And so how do you approach that if you're going into these kind of career that, like, it's almost about the math in some ways? You're just like, this is how many people I helped. Like, did you help? Like, what intention do you go in with? Like, how do you make sure you don't fall into idealizing that you're the one helping these people versus like you're just a mean to helping that people? You're just one of the resources that could help out. I guess that's
maybe one, at least for me, one check or one test is the question to whom I'm trying to please when I do that. So if I'm trying to please people so that I get something out of it, then these people are my God, like these people that I'm worshiping. To them, I worship. If I'm trying to please myself, I feel good, when I'm helping people, and I think I'm a great person, and I'm worshiping myself. And against all of these, we are warned in Quran, right? We are warned about the people who are taking their hawa, their desire, the wishes as their lords. We are warned against people who are worshiping other people. So that's my test usually, like whom I'm trying to please when I do that. And it's usually, we say, this is the rule of the game. You have to do that. You have to do networking, for instance. This is, again, like a worshiping something. I mean, the discussion is not networking or not networking. Discussion is not helping or not helping. Discussion is, why do you help? Otherwise, yeah, you are supposed to help because this is what pleases Allah as well. But again, are you trying to please people, yourself, the system?
And how can I not fall into that? So I fall into that because I think I am the source. Like, for example, I didn't cook today, but let's assume I cooked it. So if you say, oh, it tastes so good. And if I start feeling like, oh yeah, I did something good, then that means I fell into it. But how can I not fall into that? It could only happen to the extent that I realize I don't have any share in preparing that table, really. But how do I do that, though? This is the tricky part, right? Because generally my understanding is if I didn't choose to cook them, they would come home, there wouldn't be any food. But look, I chose to cook and here is the food. Therefore, I want to get some share. And not only that, I added this spice, I put this much. All of them starts with I. I see myself as the agent there. I need to ask the question, am I really the agent? But this takes some maybe introspective thinking. It's because I feel like I do, but am I rightfully doing that? And to give an example about this, so if, let's say, your father keeps giving you $10 every day, the first time he gives it to you, you would feel special about it. And if you do favor to somebody else with this $10, you would know that it's from your father. But your father keeps giving you this $10 every day. After 2 months, 3 months, you take it for granted. It's now your money. It's not your father's favor anymore. And in the first few days, maybe, if you were giving it to your brother says, thank you. You would say, no, it's not mine. I already took it from my father. So go ahead and thank my father. But after 3 months, you will take it so granted that now it's your money. Like if your father stops giving you that $10, you would get shocked and say, how dare you stop giving me? It was my money, all right? Then after 3 months, when you give this $10 to your brother, you would expect him to thank you. Nothing has changed really. That money is still not yours. But since I stopped questioning where this money is coming from, I'm not thankful anymore because I take it for granted. It's not my money. Then I start feeling like I did a favor to my brother. So this is where I guess we need to question. It has been so long, I've never questioned where my skills are coming from, where this desire to feed people is coming from, where this spice is coming from, where this power of will is coming from, like anything in that process, where are they coming from? I took it for granted, it is mine. This is why when you say, oh, it tastes so good, you start me smiling because I think it's mine. This is why I start feeling good about it. So in order not to fall into here, there's a good amount of unlearning or self-questioning that needs to happen. How much do I owe? So this is why it's not going to be easy, because there is 20, 30 years of bad habits accumulated, which needs to be questioned back.
Jazakallah. Oh, one more. Yeah, please.
So like, what is the proper response? Because it's like you said, you smile because it's like your first initial thought is, so that initial feeling that you get, like, how do you have corrected that? Because at the end of the day, like when you hear something good, you're happy, or, so is there a different happiness when you associate it and you're like, oh no, I didn't associate this with myself. Like, what if I'm still wanting to be happy because somebody was like, this food is good, and you're like, oh, okay, thank you.
So within Islamic tradition, there's this, if you like, reflex. When somebody flatters you, what would they say? I don't know if it's in your culture as well. They would say, astaghfirullah. Right? Why? Like it came to a point that, for example, at least in Turkey, you would flatter might say, astaghfirullah. Like the word is still there, but the meaning is not there. So this is why they say this astaghfirullah is more like, yeah, of course it is, sort of a thing. But there was a reason it was astaghfirullah, because it is more like, let's say, I distributed, like Birkan is the boss of every single one of us, and I am the person responsible for giving you the your salaries. So he gives me $100,000, and I come and distribute you your salaries. And I keep distributing it to you. You start saying that, oh, thank you, Yusuf. If you were not here, we wouldn't get this money. It's all from you. What should I say? Astaghfirullah. I mean, it's Birkan's money. I am getting paid for distributing you the money. Like I'm already getting paid for doing this job. It's not out of my favor. It's Birkan's. Don't attribute it to me. I'm not a burglar. I'm not a thief. Because it is as if I'm a thief. I have stolen the money from him. And now I'm doing you a favor and I'm distributing it. So I would get offended actually. If you would thank me, I would get offended and I would say, Astaghfirullah, no way. I would rather divert the attention to the true source. I would say, yes, this is a good thing, distributing your money, but this is neither my money, nor I am doing it out of favor. I am doing it because I'm getting paid for doing it. So I, like you, am thankful to Birkan. So then somebody, if I'm conscious, when somebody says, oh, thank you for cooking this, I would say, either I would say Astaghfirullah, saying that, no, it's my creator's, or I would say Alhamdulillah, but truly meaning what that means is, there is something praiseworthy in this food, but that praise do not belong to me. That praise should belong to Alhamdulillah. All the praise in here, praiseworthy things in here should belong to him. So I will divert your attention to him. Still, I'm happy because I get to know my maker and I diverted your attention to true source. So I can be thankful for that. I can be happy and thankful because I have been the means to observe how he is manifesting his mercy from firsthand. Still, I would be happy, but it's a legitimate and true happiness. The other way around, it was an actually thief-like happiness. I am getting flattered for something that do not belong to me. You flatter me. I know in truth it doesn't belong to me deep inside. Yet I say, well, as long as Birkan doesn't hear about it, it's okay. So yes, I did it. But I do hear. The creator hears it. So there's no escape from that. So this is why I think this might be a.
Any other comments? Sure. Comments and questions are great. So please keep doing it. Any other comments, questions so far? No?
I have a question.
Please.
What's the evidence for the money not being yours? Like someone could pose the question that, oh, like God gave me this money, so it's mine, and hence I can do whatever I want with it. How do you sort of respond to that?
How do I respond with that? I usually don't respond. And yes, you can use your money as you wish. I guess it's more about how your conscience responds to that. Because like especially if you are working and earning the money firsthand, you know that it is given to you. That you had no creative power in creating it. You're just given to it, like a given the money. I mean, if you are true to yourself, if you are if you are honest worker, let's say, you would know firsthand that you get it from somewhere. And at the same time, again, if you are honest to yourself, you have this sense of the praise or the thankfulness, like being thankful that you are given this money. I don't know what else you would need as an evidence, like yourself. So when somebody asks about evidence, and if it is about someone else, like trying to prove something to someone else, I usually have difficulty because like when it comes to belief, it is more about whether you are convinced or not. But if you are not convinced that there is no way you can explain it anyone else either. The question is always whether you are convinced or not, because if you are convinced, your conviction will be at the just by looking at yourself, your life, your reality. And when you realize that, you can easily share this fact with anyone else as well, because everybody that you are talking to will be another human being. They will be also gaining, like earning the money in the same way you do. So just by looking at the way you get the money and sharing this with others, I think would be enough of evidence. Like otherwise, if you asking me like whether if you want, can you burn the money? Yes, you can. But you can only will to burn money, for instance. Right? You cannot control whether it will be really burned or not. So you may try to, for instance, light your lighter and it may not work. So the control is not in your hands. You know that from first hand. You can only wish, you can only will to do something, to spend your money, for instance. You can only will. The shop, for instance, may refuse your money. It may happen, right? You think that I have the money, I can do with everything with it. I can, purchase this beautiful bicycle of Yusuf, I say. And if Yusuf refuses to sell it to me, I cannot do it. So I can only will to do anything with my money.
I guess a maybe closer example for that could be ideas, because we feel like I came up with an idea. Like, I know that the idea was not there, and now I say, oh, I have found it. Like there was a problem, I work on it, and I say, I found it. So the question is, can I attribute this to myself, or it is given to me? But the thing is, if it was not there before, like think of it this way, in my house, there was no gold, okay? And now,
Is there now?
okay. Now,
Change the example.
okay. So there was no gold, but I keep digging and digging and digging and digging. And then over the table, all of a sudden, I see a gold over there. What would you say? Because gold was not there before. Oh, I found gold. You would say somebody must have put this gold into there. Like, for example, you're trying to solve a problem. You are not able to solve it. And then one day you solve it. Either you see a dream or an idea comes to you. This is how we say it, right? An idea came, a bright idea came. A brick of gold appears on top of your table. Would you say, I created the gold, or you would say somebody put the gold here? You do know that gold was not there before. It might happen that, like every here and then, in your house, gold keeps appearing. When you know that you are not creating it, because creating means like it was not there before. So if it doesn't exist, have you ever created anything, like giving existence to non-existence? It's illogical. Like creation out of nothing is illogical for human. What I am saying is an important distinction. Creation out of nothing for creator is a different thing, totally different thing. What we mean by that is something to be thought about. But let's put it aside. For human, it's already non-existent, right? You do not even know non-existent. And now you're claiming that I made it into being. This is an absurd of a claim, as much as saying that, oh, that gold over there, which just appeared, I made it. For a gold, we know it for a fact that we do not make it, because it was not there before. Now it is there. Say it again. Okay, so today, right now, there's no gold here, right? So in this room, there's no gold. All of a sudden, if a gold appears right in front of everybody's eyes, a gold appears here, what would you say? And I claim that I created it. Would you believe in that? No. Now, right now we are here. Let's say we are 20 people. We are trying to solve a problem. No solution. All of a sudden I say, oh, here's the solution. It came to me, an idea came to me. And then I say, oh, I created the solution. Would you believe in that?
But it's his mind.
Yeah.
In his mind.
This is what we tend to do, right? We say, oh, I came up with the answer. or I found the answer. It's no different than a gold appearing in front of us, like as a brick. An idea is another brick, rather than in front of the room, like in the middle of the room. It appears in the middle of my brain. Why do we say, why didn't you believe that I created the gold? Because you say it didn't exist before. Now it is there. Like creation out of nothing, what does that even mean? Like if it didn't exist before, how do you bring something out of existence into existence? If you think about it, it is not a thing that is possible at all, really. Doesn't make any sense. Apply the same thing to, rather than a brick of gold, apply to a brick of idea. So that's why Birkan was saying that just the fact that money comes to you should make you ask, where does this come from? It was not mine in the first place. The fact that it is coming to you from outside is showing that it comes from someone, from some source, which means I cannot attribute it to myself. But since money might be a little bit of a tougher example, since human will is being involved and whatnot, just take the ideas, or take the brick of gold, which imaginally appearing right in front of, in the middle of the room. So creation out of nothing is not possible. And every single one of you know it by fact, actually. I cannot create anything because I do not know non-existence. It's non-existence anyways. So how do I give existence to something? What does it even mean? You look like you have a question.
Sorry, I was thinking inventions that like humans have created and attributed to a person, and then went ahead to justify it as like, we ran 100 experiments to get this flight to take off or this to happen. But then if we go back to the argument of you can't make nothing out of something, that you can't come up with that idea. I guess like, how do you put forward inventions in this context?
Yeah,
So.
this is exactly that is, right? That person, for example, in our English preparation class, I remember reading a story about how they invented the sewing machine. So the guy was trying to, because to the back of the needle, there needs to be, I don't know, a hole. So eventually the person found out in his dream, he sees that like those, some natives in an island with the spears are about to kill him. And before he wakes up, he notices that at the tip of their spears, there's a hole. He wakes up and he says, oh, I found it. I'm going to put the hole to the tip of the needle for the sewing machine. Clearly, you would say that he saw this in his dream, and this was out of his control, so somebody put it to his dream, right? You would say this. When you're awake, an idea comes to you. Where does this idea come to you from? Because you say that, oh, we should design the plane like this so that it's going to plane. It doesn't work. You say, oh, no, we should try that one. Where did this came from, right? That idea came to you. Where does it come from? Is it yours? Or you know that it was not there before. Now it is there. Somebody must have put it. And this is why the example of gold is perfectly making sense, because we know for a fact that we do not create gold or anything of that sort. So nobody attributes it to themselves. But we get used to seeing those $10 in our pocket since our birth. Like here and then, Creator gives us those ideas, or we found those ideas in our pocket, and we tend to see that, oh, I found it. And this is why we are not thanking its source. We are thinking that it is mine.
There's a question from Arsalan first, if you don't mind. He says, sorry if it is already answered, but how does one differentiate hard work to the point that it becomes idol worshipping? So I believe what we are discussing is somehow covers that, because with inventions, for instance, also we see that people work really hard and then invent something. So the question is to whom you attribute the creation there. Like Sarah works days and nights and then come up with a perfect explanation for I don't know, something happening in the plant. And then we attribute this to Sarah and say that, but he worked really hard. Come on, not Zerin, but Sarah worked hard, right? So we attribute it to Sarah and Sarah's hardworking. Now it becomes actually idol worshiping. We idolize the hardworking and also idolize the Sarah. And what is the right way to do? Like look at it. One example might be, I, for instance, let's say, do not pray what is it? Midnight prayer. Okay. Let's assume I don't. Tahajjud. And then this guy does it a lot, right? He prays more than me. He makes dua more than I do. Just the same way. Like Zerin works less. She's lazy. She's not doing tahajjud. And Sarah is working hard and asking more. When she asks more, sometimes like it's kind of like we say natural laws, and these are the laws of rububiyyah, right? The laws of being sustained. When you ask more, the chance that you get, the chance doesn't work there, but getting more is usually common. But it's just the answering your prayer. It's not that you create something, or it's not that hard working does it. You just ask more. I don't know if this answers your question, Arsalan, but if not, somebody else can answer. Let's go with your question, inshallah, or comment.
No, I only have a question. So Dr. Yusuf was telling us about like the idea that comes to your mind. It is from Allah, but what about the thought that comes to your mind? For example, you see gold and you say that this is gold. Do we attribute that thought to Allah as well, or is that like that thought comes to you your own self? Like,
that's the question. Can you create it or not? Like this is how we work. Like when we say La ilaha. So there is something, thought, idea, or whatever it is. Can you create it? Can you control it? So for instance, when you need a thought, and sometimes you realize that you cannot produce thoughts, right? Like sometimes I ask you, oh, do you remember what was the name of this thing? It doesn't come to my mind. So if I was the creator, I would just pop it out to the existence, right? And I will tell you it. So I cannot control it. So it's obvious that it's not mine. You have an objection there, I see.
Sarah says that's too much. That's too much pace.
No, it's not an objection. It's just like I just can't wrap my head around it. So if we're saying that like this idea is created, so for example, you said like we saw the gold, and you said that someone put that gold there, and I said like no, brother Yusuf created that gold. So the idea in my head that was created is that brother Yusuf created that gold. So why would God create such an idea in my head? So is there like someone creating something else too? Like we say, oh, this is from shaitan, but like if I don't know, like it like this, like when it comes to ideas, I feel like now if like every idea is created by God, it's supposed to be, but like even like this kind of idea, like when it comes to shirk, like you have certain thoughts, right, that are coming to your head.
Let's make it more substantial. Somebody is killed in front of you, and very innocent person, may Allah forbid, but a child being slaughtered in front of you. This event is created by Allah or not? Is it created or not? It's a terrible event, right? It's like, can you explain it without saying that it is created? I mean, it was not there before. It's an action, it's an event, it's happening, something in front of me. So it has to be created. It cannot happen by itself. So the creation wise, it is the same thing. But of course, there are the will of this person slaughtering, and
Right.
so there are other ingredients as well. But everything within this experience is being created. How else would you explain?
Well, someone else would say like there are two things, like the good thing is created by God, the bad thing is created
But
by
this is like,
something else.
we're not talking about the culture. We're talking about something happening in front of you, good or bad. How would you explain it? Like, forget about your background, your even Muslim background. Like, the question is whether it is something new or not, something needs to be created or not. And to me, it's something created. So I have to attribute this creation to something. If you can attribute it to the person, for instance, who holds the knife, you can attribute it to this person. But this is what we are studying, right? With this la ilaha. So today, we said we will study these causes. And in this example, for instance, the person who's holding the knife is the apparent cause of this action. Now we will ask the question whether this person can be the cause, the creator of this action or not. We will ask this question today, inshallah. I'm sure it is
Very small comment. So just to make it a little easier, maybe as an example, teacher in the classroom sometimes says, especially when the students, and I do that too, students start zoning out. I say 2 + 2 is 5, right? They say, right. So I do it to wake them up. Like, this sort of a thing is there for them to realize that, oh no, it doesn't make sense. Then, oh yeah, it's 4. So this is part of education. Sometimes you show the wrong answer and the expectation is students should reject it. It is again part of the education. And our point of being sent to this life or being sustained in this life is to learn. Read in the name of your Lord. And this is really if you look at yourself and the difference between yourself and an animal, we do learn. We are meant to learn. Animals do not, right? So how do you learn? Sometimes with positive examples are given and I'm expected to accept it. And sometimes wrong answers are given and I'm expected to reject it. Both are examples or the options presented to me from the same source.
That was small.
So if we put this like as you said, like as a teacher in a classroom. So if I go back to my example where I said no, so there's idea in my head being created that no, it's Brother Yusuf that created this brick of gold. Then another idea would come, which is asking myself, but does Brother Yusuf create stuff? Like, or can he create? So this is, I mean, I think this is what you mean, right?
Yeah.
And this is how I will ideally, the point is to reach a conclusion that Brother Yusuf cannot create gold. It's, I should attribute it to something else.
And that second idea would be revelation, right? Revelation comes and says, no, Yusuf cannot create anything. So in a sense, teacher puts the question over there, a creation is happening. And then Satan, or what is represented by Satan, gives the idea saying that, oh, Yusuf created it. And then the revelation comes and says, no, Yusuf or anything cannot create it. Now you have 2 options. Which one are you going to choose? The revelation would tell this. The creation would support this. Prophet would support this. On the other hand, Satan is going to offer you that option, or in the language of Quran, what is being depicted as Satan is this false option, which is presented to you there, and it is part of humans' education. So it's very beautiful if we pay attention to how Quran describes Satan, because where does Satan appear? In the story of Adam alayhi salam, because it is part of humans, a very core part of human education, actually, humans' education in this life. We learn sometimes with positive examples, sometimes with negative examples, or to generalize more, we learn by contrasts. If it was all white, you wouldn't even know white. If there's black, then you know all the shades of gray and all the colors and white. So this is how we are learning. This is our reality. So Satan would be there, black, like some opposite example. And we are asked to reject it as a human. So, and everything in between, Satan and everything, is then the creation out there.
Any other comments, questions? Oh, please. Where? Oh, yeah.
So I had a question about like humans' emotion then. So somebody wrongs you, or you feel wronged by somebody, or you feel hurt by somebody, and your initial reaction is like, that person hurt me. So is it then you keep questioning to like, are you saying like, why did that person hurt me? It's supposed to be a lesson. Like, are you supposed to look beyond that and get to that conclusion that if it wasn't meant to be, I guess, in a sense, that that person confront you in that manner, it wouldn't have happened that way? Like, how do you address it? I guess, like, if it's person's emotion rather than thing that is happening or an event.
Would you like it? So the first revelation, the Iqra, it's so broad, right? It says just Iqra. It doesn't say Iqra this, Iqra that. It doesn't say read this or read that. It's like read. And then comes Iqra bismi rabbika allazi halaq. So read in the name of the creator, your Rabb who creates. Whatever you are trying to understand, whether it is thoughts, emotions, my homework, this computer, the same command is there. Read in the name of your Rabb who creates. So your question, emotions. So the Quran gives us the methodology. The first thing, it's you have to read. You will say, okay, don't take it as granted. Read means don't take it as granted that's something ordinary. There is nothing to be studied. Don't take it that way. Realize that there is something to be studied, to be understood, to be read. You say, my emotions, where did they come from? That this is the reading. And then the second component of this halaq, like it's being created. So you should first realize that it is something being created. It was not there before, now it is, right? And then now you ask the question, who creates it? Is it me? Because when I say I feel bad, it's just a language, of course, like I'm not playing with the semantics, the words and so on. But if I mean when I say I feel bad or I feel angry, if I mean that it is my feeling that I created at this moment because it was required, like as a defense mechanism. Somebody is attacking to me, and then as a defense mechanism, I just initiated, the anger processes are initiated, this type of, the robot. Like, is it something like that I created this feeling? The answer is usually easily no, because we blame the other one. I say, Zareen made me angry. With her look, like I felt so angry. She made me angry, I say. So I realize that this feeling needs to be studied. I realize that it is created, but now I say Zareen created it. So, and as we keep doing, you say, no, it's not me, because if it was me, I can get rid of it easily as well. I'm angry, okay, everything is fine now, let me not be angry. I cannot do it. Sometimes it's keep going on going, right? And then I blame Zareen, and then I say, but even if she was not here, right? Just imagining, say, a fight between us, I would get angry sometimes. And imagine that you having an imaginary fight with your boss or your teacher or your parents. You get angry.
Or I just make up, oh, Zerrin told you this, you know what, from behind, she was speaking like this, but Zerrin didn't do anything. I'm just,
So
but you are not getting angry with Zerrin.
even without her, I can get angry, the same anger. So it's obviously not her either. So I have to explore, I have to study who's creating. But the first thing is realizing that it needs to be studied. You have to ask a question, reading. The second thing, realizing that it is something being created. And then the third question, who created it? Is it me? Is it her? Is it him? Is it my biological, the processes, whatever? You have to ask all these questions and say, La ilaha, la ilaha, la ilaha, and then illallah. When everything is exhausted, you say, oh, there must be something that created it. And Quran calls it as Allah. So it's interesting. Like, let's look at the Quran, how Quran defines, like it describes Allah. It says, Huwallahu allazi la ilaha illallah. Right? So, la ilaha illallah. So if you want to understand Allah, Quran says, this is how you should understand. Allazi la ilaha illallah. He is the one, other than him, there's no God. So that's the only way you know Allah, through la ilaha illallah. So you have to say la ilaha, and then you can reach who? Huwa. Him. It. So this is, at least Quran defines Allah. But we, as quote-unquote Muslims, we take it granted, we already know the answer, right? Allah, He is my Lord, He is the creator, He created this, He created that, He gets angry when we do this, and so on. So Quran doesn't do that. Quran doesn't want us to know Allah in this way. It says, every time you think about Allah, you have to start from La ilaha. If you don't do that, there's no difference between you saying that Allah created this and his friend who says, oh, no, there are some spiritual forces who created this. There's no difference between the two. Difference comes from La ilaha part. For his friend, it's just dogmatic, the answer. Some spiritual forces created this rain. How do you know that? Oh, because I know that my father thought so. The same way we say, oh, no, Allah created it. How do you know that? Oh, because my father said so. Or my book says so. No, Quran says, no, don't do that. Look at the rain. First, say La ilaha. Because you are a human being. You will have the false idols. The first thing come to your mind would be the water, money, whatever, society. That would come to your mind. Say La ilaha first, and then whatever conclusion you reach, you will reach Allah. Now you have a difference between you saying that Allah created rain, because now you demonstrated it. You explained to yourself. Other than Allah, nothing can create rain, you said. But with his friend, I'm just keep using your example from last week. But for his friend, the spiritual force created rain. It's just Basil's claim. How do you know that? Did you, study it? Did you, come up with some explanation, conclusions? No. I know it because this is our tradition. This is our religion.
So, yeah, again, like I said last week, I think that me being able to say La ilaha, like remove all this false God, it's also because of my akida. Like I have something. See, because my friend can ask me, did you see Allah creating the rain? I would tell him I didn't see Allah creating the rain, but I believe that Allah created the rain, even though I've removed it's not spiritual God, it's not this, it's not that, it's not like force of nature, right? Sometimes I think the way you said you should be able to explain. Sometimes I think it's hard to explain it. especially going by the question they've asked also before today. I think we can't see this. The reason why I can't see this and my friend can't see this is because of, not necessarily because I can't explain, but because of I have this idea, this belief that God created this. You can explain, but I don't think to me you can give like a vivid explanation unless I want to believe this. No matter you tell me cancel this God, cancel this God, cancel this God, it's easier for you to accept canceling those God as a Muslim. But I think because I think about this struggling after I left here last week, I'm convinced that Allah is the one that did all this. But to explain for somebody that, yeah, you have to remove this God, remove this God, remove this God. Of course, I still do this, remove those God. But for him, it's not that easy, I think. You know, that is what I just.
So the belief is always, forget about, the religion. Belief in general is always towards something that you don't see. Otherwise, you wouldn't call it as belief. You would just calling it seeing. So for instance, I believe that somebody wrote this beautiful writing on top of you, on the wall. I believe somebody wrote it. So I don't see somebody's writing it, but I believe somebody wrote it. Not because as a Muslim, I was taught that somebody wrote it. No. I look at it. I see the qualities there. And I say that this paper cannot give rise to these qualities. I say, la ilaha. The paper, gone. I say, this air, whatever, cannot give rise to these writings. La ilaha. Frame, no way. He comes and says that I did it. I look at him. I look at the qualities. I look at him again. I say, la ilaha. And then I come to the conclusion. Belief is the conclusion. Belief is not the starting point. I come to the conclusion that there must be someone with talent who can write these writings, wrote it. This is the belief. Otherwise, if I say, I never been to Turkey. I'm from Turkey, that's the example. I never been to Turkey, but I believe there is a beautiful tree in the middle of Istanbul because he said me so. This is not belief. This is wish. This is just imagining something. This is not belief. The Quranic belief, this is not belief.
I think, again, my argument is, I think for me, when I think about what you're telling me, is I think we are undermining the desire from Allah to be able to recognize this. If I said this frame doesn't make itself, it is because I think I'm able to realize that. No, I don't think it's because of my common sense, actually.
Yeah.
It's because of, like, there's a gift from Allah to make me realize that, like, this can't make itself. I think that is not trivial to me, because the reason why that is, I have a brain, my friend also has a brain. He's a first-class student, I'm a first-class student. So that means it can think almost the same way that I can't think. But Allah has kind of given me, like, I don't know, like, the grace to see things the way you can't see it. So I think we can explain this for as long as we want, but we can't, like, undermine that factor there to be able to see, like, the truth when it's the truth is not very obvious to people.
So that's how Quran says, right? Like, no matter how you work or how you put effort, they wouldn't believe unless I put iman in their heart, right? So yes, but these explanations are not for other people. These are for ourselves. These are to check to ourselves whether when we say believe, I believe in God, do you mean that it's just, I've been kept told that there's Allah, I have to believe, otherwise I will go to hell. My father said, my mother said, is this the case? Or do I really come to the conclusion that there must be Allah? But this is for ourselves, but you want to say something and then we have to give break. Okay. Yeah. 8:30.
Let's give a break and inshallah we can do.
Okay, let's give a break for Maghrib prayer and then inshallah we will continue. In 10 minutes.
10 minutes we are starting inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, let's continue. Okay, we have like around 20 minutes maybe, or close to half an hour at most. So I just want to go back to the beginning a little bit and remind us why we've been keep asking such questions, you know, working this topic, why we are studying. And it's all started with this the explanation of there's no God but God, as you see on the screen, which is, it says, this phrase conveys the following good news to the human spirit. La ilaha illallah conveys the following good news to the human spirit, suffering as it does countless needs and the attacks of innumerable enemies. On the one hand, the spirit finds a place of recourse, a source of help, through which is open to it the door of a treasury of mercy that will guarantee all its needs. While on the other hand, it finds a support and source of strength, for the phrase makes known its creator and true object of worship, who possesses the absolute power to secure it from the evil of all its enemies. So the reason we've been studying this, as explained in this text, is to see how La ilaha illallah give us the good news that save us from innumerable enemies, give us a source of support or source of strength, a place of support. In the original it says istimdat, I guess, which is like the place you can find imdad, to help. Okay? So La ilaha illallah. So let's tie back, you know, what's been studying all about this la ilaha part. How this provide us, like having understanding of la ilaha illallah, even the la ilaha parts, save us from our enemies attacking, like it says, attacks of innumerable enemies. Anyone who wants to remind us how we studied these enemies part, like maybe giving us any example of enemies? Anyone? Do you have any enemy in your mind? I think no. Zarin, you haven't spoken. Maybe it's your time.
So I guess I was thinking of these attacks of innumerable enemies as these sort of false ilahs that we've been talking about, that we've been trying to rule out la ilaha. So basically, if we fail to do that, then we're taking on these different ilahs in our lives, like the rain, like the other spiritual forces or whatever, like our bosses.
Let's try to find some example from your life.
Okay.
That somebody attacking you in your mind or in reality. Like, what enemies do we have?
Okay, I guess I can, from my life, I can maybe use the example of like maybe my PI or my supervisor. So I might set him up as like this false ilah because I go to him for advice on like my scientific like experiments and thinking about going to him for help when things aren't going right, because I see him as this like source of help that has all the answers for this, because he's been through this whole procedure before, and so he has all the experience and knowledge. So someone like that, I guess, in my daily life could be considered an enemy or a false ilah, because I've gone to him for this help, not realizing that actually he's just like me too, and he also does not have he didn't come to this like knowledge by producing it on his own. He had to also go through the same process of being a grad student and then going to his like advisor for help, and sort of it's the same process for like really anyone in my life. So I guess I see these attacks as like looking to people or things in creation as like the source of help, the place of recourse, instead of my creator, who is the ultimate source. And in the end, I will inevitably be disappointed, because all of these things are like me. They all have an end. They don't have any control over this like supposed help they're giving me. So in the end, they would be enemies, because I will be however like further down the line, I will eventually be disappointed, because one day they won't be able to provide the so-called help I'm like looking for, because they're not the source.
Well, one example comes to my mind. Do you all remember the language being used when first the quote?
Assalamualaikum, Brother Burkhan, we can't hear.
My microphone is muted. Sorry. Oh, I was talking about the language being used with the COVID. The frontline workers, the fighters, we will defeat this enemy. We will, we are stronger than it, and so on and so forth. And I was saying that we've been through this a few years of anxiety, like constant anxiety, all of us as an entire humanity. But when I realized that my death or life is only in his hands, this is what we read right at the very beginning. وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ وَيَهْدِي وَيُمِيتُ وَهُوَ حَيٌّ. So the death and life is from him. When I realize that, I just take my, precautions, because this is what my creator wants me to do so. But then there's no anxiety anymore. This phrase, La ilaha, saved me. Like if I was able to, of course. Saved me such an anxiety, such a big anxiety So mental health consequences of COVID is now much bigger than physical consequences. It's been always bigger than physical consequences because of this anxiety that we live, because of this craze that we've been through as an entire humanity. We wanted to worship a virus. We did worship a virus, entire humanity, and then we are living the consequences. All these enemies attacking us. This is just one example. The sickness, any type of sickness, is your enemy. If you look at as your health depends on the sickness. If you look at that way, then the sickness becomes your enemy. Atik becomes your enemy if you have to please him in your life. That you are friend with the friend of Atik, but you have this sense that, you know, I have to go along nice, fine with my friends. Now you're trying to please him. If he's not pleased, you are not pleased. And you put effort to please him, and he becomes your enemy, your friend.
Give an example about the career. Job market.
Job market. Job market is your enemy, right? Because
job market becomes potential enemy.
Job market is your enemy. Then your wife become your enemy because every day, I mean, since you already find your job, let's assume you couldn't find your job. Every day that you cannot find your job, her look will change. Maybe you're not that good. You are the one, you will be, you will be my husband, like you are my husband that who cannot find job. How you are planning to, they take care of me or this family, whatever. She will be your enemy, right? Everything that you have to please instead of the real creator source will become your enemy. So the La ilaha is so essential to us. To live a healthy life, to live like a human, you have to understand La ilaha illallah. Without understanding this phrase, forget about the people that you have to convince that there is Allah. Forget about them. Look at yourself. Without this phrase, you will go through depression, you will go through anxiety. And we've been through anxiety. We are going through anxiety, constant anxieties, because we don't understand La ilaha. So we have like a 5-10 minutes, Yusuf. So can you cover everything we were supposed to cover today? Inshallah.
So, just maybe then 2 comments. Two. So the first one was, it was, I guess, just to go back to the previous thing. So if there was, I mean, forget about the gold example now. If there was a dead body in the room, like we entered the room and there's a corpse in the room, like some hole in the forehead of the guy is just laying down. And then for whatever reason, I think that Birkan killed him. Okay. I haven't seen Birkan killing him. Just somebody told that Birkan killed him. So what would you do in this case? I can say that, well, let's say I took the fingerprints and then I checked the fingerprint of people here. It's not Zechariah's, it's not Helen's, it's not Zechariah's mother's. So I am just canceling out candidates which might be the person who killed the corpse. Still, I haven't seen who killed it. Let's say I compared all the fingerprints here. None of the fingerprints matches. Do I say that, well, the guy just died by himself? Or would I say, well, there must be a person who killed it, but at least none of them killed it. So to that I can say, now I am sure there must be a killer because the guy, I mean, imagine it's just cutting from here. So since a person cannot cut both hands and whatnot, so it's not a self-inflicted death. Let's make sure this is the case in our example. But I couldn't find anybody in this room. this wouldn't make me conclude that, well, the guy just died by himself. The guy imposed death on himself. I am sure there must be a killer, but I would say it's none of these people. This is the same procedure. And even if somebody comes and says, Birkan did it, I mean, of course, it's nice. We found someone. If I'm the police administrator, I have to find someone, right? If you say Birkan, oh, yeah, Birkan did it, and I saved my skin from just saying being an unsuccessful police officer. But in reality, I don't have any evidence that Birkan killed him other than a hearsay, right? It's not a proof. It's a wishful thinking saying that Birkan killed him. But if I can prove somehow, let's imagine there were 1,000 people, for the sake of argument, let's say there are 1,000 people among humanity, and I canceled out 999 people from that equation. Just, I'm simplifying the example, so don't try to find like flaws in the example. If Birkan, or let's say, since I also canceled out Birkan, but then Atik is the 1,000th person. Since I canceled out 999, now everybody looks at Atik because he must be the killer since I canceled out everybody else. This is the procedure of La ilaha illallah. There's a dead corpse in front of me, or there's a newborn baby, or there is an apple that's being made. Who made this apple is the question. And I say it cannot be this, it cannot be that, it cannot be tree, it cannot be clouds, it cannot be DNA, this, that. I just cancel out all of them. But this doesn't mean that it happens by itself. We discussed that it happens by itself implies something actually. Like itself meaning, what is it? Is it the particles? Is it the apple tree? What? But there has to be a maker. This is Iman. Like Iman in this case is your conclusion that there has to be someone who did this, but it is none of them. This is Iman. Otherwise, if somebody comes and says this apple, or Birkan made it, God made it, I don't know, spirit of something made it. What's your evidence for that? No evidence. It's just a name I put on something. This is why Quran very beautifully puts this, right? We talked about this last week as well. You just give names to them. You and your fathers give names to them for which you don't have any evidence, like Burhan, no evidence for them. This is our reality. Even if I call it Allah, it doesn't change. Since I am born into a Muslim environment, I call it Allah. If I was born into another environment, this is why Imam Ghazali, observing this, he said that children being born in Christian families become Christian, Jews become Christian, Muslims become Christian. So Muslim, sorry. He says, yeah. So he says, this is why it is mandatory for everybody to arrive to Iman with their personal journey. This was his conclusion. And it makes sense. I mean, I agree in his conclusion, but since he's an authority, I'm just giving his name. But this is common sense. Otherwise, if a Muslim somehow ends up with the right name, Allah, it doesn't mean that it is my answer. I just cheated from somewhere. I don't really know what it means. I say Allah created it. And some people from Nigeria's, let's say, local villagers say that, oh, it is such and such spirit created it. I mean, that guy goes to hell, I go to paradise. We go through same anxieties as Birkan said in life. Like his whatever spirit doesn't save him from anxiety. My lack of personal conviction to Allah doesn't save me from anxiety either. So the benefit that is being mentioned in here, I don't see it in my life, which is an indication that my conclusion was already flawed. But can I arrive to such a strong conclusion? Definitely I can. This is how we do for law enforcement. Nobody sees who killed the guy, like it's gone. But still, we find who killed it. How? We follow the steps and we go and interview the potential candidates who might be the killer. So we say this cannot be, this cannot be, this cannot be. Then we find the guy, everything points to him, and then they make cross-examination. And then at the end he says, yes, I did it. Everything points to me anyways. This is how La ilaha illallah would also work. This is, Birkan was using the word belief. He said Quranic belief, which is Iman. Iman
needs to be bring you security, and you need to be sure and secure about it. It's not about I believe because I heard it or Quran says so, sort of a thing. But if you are talking about this guidance is created in me, this will boil down to what Daratu was asking. Because we are talking about those feelings or things being created, guidance is also created in me, must be created in me as well. I am not the source of that guidance either. It is being suggested to me. Previously, I was rejecting it. I was not accepting it. I was saying that, no, it is chance, or it is causes, or it is laws, and this and that. Now I am saying that, yes, this is the truth. I am accepting it. This time, I'm not going to deny it. That's why guidance is from my creator. Oh, this was the one, but I guess it is already too long.
Oh, you want another one?
Forget about it.
Sure.
So I was just going to make a summary about causes, but it's. So the second point was so last 2 weeks we talked about it happens by itself, and we talked about it happens by nature. And the third idea was the causes. Today, although we did not exactly cover it, but the causes, the idea with the causes is, if for the corpse over there, if I say that Birkan killed it, and if you see that Birkan is a paralyzed person, you would say that no, Birkan cannot kill him because Birkan cannot even move his finger. Whomever killed this guy needs to be able to hold a gun, aim it, and shoot it. This guy is not even able to move his finger. What is happening here? There is an effect, which is a dead body in this example. And I am suggesting a cause as Birkan, but Birkan is in our example, paralyzed person. So you say that, well, this cause cannot be the real cause of that effect. So you cancel it out. In our case, what do? We say DNA is the cause of cells, that replication or whatnot. We say that water is the source of life. Like we see it as a cause which does it. Or we say that, I don't know. That's why in case of Ibrahim alayhi salam's story, it is a perfect example of causality. He broke all the idols, left one of them intact, and put the axe on its neck. People came and self-questioned, like, what happened to our gods? Ibrahim points to the larger one. Ask it. Maybe it's going to tell you. What does he say here? Whomever broke your idols must be someone, people know that, right? Must be someone who can use this axe, who is angry with gods, who can walk and smash all of them. Like this large idol, although it is intact, it cannot do any of these. Like the apparent cause, which is now the idol, is incapable of delivering the effect. So you say that the cause cannot do it really. In our life, we do talk about causes. We say that, oh, I'm successful because I studied. Studying is the cause of my success.
My boss is the cause of my promotion.
My
He
boss
likes me, therefore,
Yeah.
I am promoted.
So, and how do we do that? We say, if I don't study, I don't learn. When I study, I learned. Therefore, studying is the cause of my success. This is being our causal reasoning, which is an invalid reasoning. It doesn't really mean as such, as we were discussing 2 weeks ago with the example of Pavlov's dogs, if you remember that. So this is why the third thing that we covered today is causes cannot be the creator either. So what did we do then overall the 3 weeks? We said, these are the potential 3 candidates. Either you would say that it happens by natural laws, or you would say that it happens by itself, or you would say that, oh, causes make them.
And
No.
something else in the universe
Is the cause of it, yeah.
sun being the cause of, for instance, the life or
Yeah.
energy.
And of course, for that, I'll need to observe, as Ibrahim alayhi salam taught me,
how to negate all those causes. And then once everything is gone, still the thing is there though, there must be a maker, but it's none of them. This is how Ibrahim alayhi salam taught us how to go through that. Break the idols, see if it does. It doesn't. Therefore, I turn my face towards the the originator, the creator of the heavens and the earth. There must be such a one. I don't know who he is, how he is, but I know he is. He must be. So this is
sees the
evidence.
samawat and the ard. Like this ard and the samawat is in front of his eyes. And he says, I cannot find the creator here, but the things are there, the samawat and ard in front of me. So there must be a father of this thing in front of me. And whoever it is, whatever it is, I believe in him.
So this is then being Iman.
That's the reason, for instance, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he says, I believe in him, he does not simply say, I believe in Allah. Because as we said, Allah is just a proper name, right? First, you have to believe the quality, like there must be something, someone who creates this thing in front of me, and I believe in him, whatever it is. And then comes the revelation. Says, oh, Ibrahim or Birkan, you've been through this journey. You were asking for who created all these things. And you eliminated everything. And you said, whoever created, it's me. My name is Allah, says. And then I say, yeah, whatever he says in this revelation perfectly fits to what I experienced. Now I believe in this scripture because it perfectly fits to my experience, perfectly fits to the universe in front of me. That's the reason, that should be the reason you believe in, let's say, Quran, but not any other book. Because this perfect fit between your experiences, the universe in front of you, and what is narrated there. So, as Yusuf said, the Iman, like we simply translate it as faith, belief, whatever. But when you look at the word, it's the same root with the, the emanat, like, or the emniyat, like, or amin, like being safe, being, sure about something. This is Iman. It's not just belief. It's not just faith. It's being, safe with it. Feeling the peaceful when you have this idea, whatever it is, right? You have no doubt. So the first time we went to this vacation place, for a few days, I kept trying to start fire. Okay, so the logs, they are really thick, and you have to ignite the fire. And we didn't have much, these small ones and so on and so forth. I keep trying doing it. I'm watching all the videos, reading about it, and so on and so forth. And I'm just trying to do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and so on. The second time, now I was, through all this experience and so on, I knew what to do, right? I started it, and it happened, and keep doing it. And I started making jokes like, oh, if we are going outside, let me put it in a lower, state, like the fire. I don't know how to say.
Tune it down?
Yeah, tune it down, okay? And my wife saying that, what I'm talking about, like, can you tune the fire down? And I said, yes, like, you make such a change. So I have this security, right? I had this relationship with the fire that I felt, secure, that I didn't have any doubt. Yeah, if you do that, it will happen. If you don't do that, it won't happen. This type of relationship. So I was amin with this the process. Because why? I've been through it. I experienced it. I practiced it. So that's the same thing with Iman. You cannot just say that I believe. No, you have to go through it. You have to go through the journey. That's the reason in Quran, the reminder is always there. All those who say we believed, do this, do that. Because the journey hasn't ended yet. Right? So you have to go through this experience. You have to feel secure. When a virus attacks you, you have to say that, I know my life and that in his hand. You have to feel secure. Right? Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking. Iman is a journey, like you have to experience, go through it. And this La ilaha illallah, as Prophet ﷺ said, is the final destination, the highest level of Iman. So it's not something that we should take lightly. Any other questions, comments? Let's finish with your beautiful comments, inshallah. Any volunteer? I think you haven't spoken. No. Okay, we are out of time then. I will have to finish here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.